Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 368. I am Peter, and joining me is Matt.
Hey, what's cracking?
This is a DC Comics podcast. We get together and we talk about the DC books we read this week. Coming up on today's show, we have Night Terror's Batman issue 2, Night Terror's Poison Ivy issue 2, Night Terror's Ravager issue 2, and we called the line was drawn in the sand there. But we also have Adventures of Superman John Kent issue 6, Justice Society of America issue 5, along with City Boy issue 3, and I'll be doing a Patreon book this week. I'll be talking about American Vampire: The Long Road to Hell issue 1. So that is what's coming up on the show. So buckle in, and there's I think one bit of news and the other favorite segment, which we'll get to in due course. How was your week, Matt?
Very stressful. I work at a school. School's getting ready to start. It's very stressful. I'm happy this week is over. So
I suppose it is. We're in August now. I guess we're getting close to those days. Which actually, for me, that just means movie theaters are going to be back to being quiet on the weekdays, and I am more than happy with that fact, quite frankly.
Back when I was in school, it didn't start until midway through August, and now with them, having school end earlier, like before Memorial Day, at the end of May, we're starting earlier, and it just I feel like it's too hot to start right now. Like we need to be closer to September.
Yeah.
So.
When I was in school, the summer holidays were basically always the last week of June to about the second or third week of August. That tended to be roughly where it fell.
So, yeah, it's hot. It's not as hot as it has been. Apparently, we had to think on the heat dome that went through our area a couple weeks.
Two will enter, one will leave.
Yeah, that's basically what it felt like. You had to survive it. And now it's heading towards the middle of the country, so they're getting those. But yeah, man, it's rough times. So I'm just happy to be inside right now.
Okay. Yeah. I have nothing adventures to report this week. I'm looking forward to go see the new Turtles movie. I'll be going to see that early next week. It's been getting a lot of good buzz. So.
Yep.
Yeah,
I wanted to see that too, but we had stuff to do, so maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. So fair enough. We'll get into it then. I know Matt's. I know what Matt needs to cheer him up after a long.
No,
rough
that's
week.
not true. That is not true.
Matt needs some numbers. He needs some order to the chaos. He needs the order of a top 10. It's the Comixology top 10, everyone.
Hey. When I said I was just happy to be inside, I recant.
Yeah. Too late to take it back now. So yeah, we're looking at Tuesday and Wednesday as of right now on Comixology, which is the comic section of Kindle these days, for the record, in case anyone's looking for it. But yeah, so what do you think number one was on Tuesday?
I want to say it's Justice Society. I want to, but I'm going to say it's Batman.
No.
Oh, man. Is it either of those?
No.
Is it Superman?
It's Adventures of Superman, John Kent.
Let's go. All right.
Yep, that's number one as of right now. I always say what was number one on Tuesday, but that technically sounds like I'm saying what was number one on Tuesday, when really it's what's number one
Tuesday.
From Tuesday, yeah. Anyway, yeah, so Adventures of Superman is number one. Number two is Justice Society of America.
Hey.
So that's cool. And then number three is Night Terror's Batman. 4 is Night Terror's Joker. 5 is Peacemaker Tries Hard, so very good. 6 is Steelworks. 7 is Night Terror's Poison Ivy. 8 is Night Terror's Black Adam. 9 is the Sandman Universe Special. And then 10 is Night Terror's Ravager, with City Boy just missing out and being number 11. Notably, the collection for Swamp Thing Green Hell is at number 13. So just letting people know that's out. It's really good. Go check it out if you haven't. So,
okay.
Cool.
I like that.
Yeah. It's a weird week. I mean, I like to see you know, the Tom Taylor and GSA books outselling all the Night Terror stuff. And we kind of saw this last week as well. As it seems like the one or two like consistent regular books that didn't take this couple of months off are starting to consistently be selling more, at least the bigger ones. Obviously, yeah, I mean, I didn't think Steelworks was going to beat the event books, but you know, it's nice to see all the same. So that's Tuesday, and as always, we'll have a glimpse at Wednesday. See what that looks like. You got a guess?
I don't see a tie-in in the top of mine, but I'm gonna go with X-Men 25.
It is X-Men 25. It's a boring guess and answer. But
X-Book of Batman sales. Who would have guessed? Is it 1990s again?
Number 2 is Astonishing Iceman. Number 3 is Magneto, which is just further proving your point because those are both X-Men characters.
Yeah.
A solo Iceman and a solo Magneto book are outselling Fantastic Four at number 4. Scarlet Witch at number 5. Well, that one's not surprising. I wouldn't expect Scarlet Witch to outsell like other X-Men characters, but although she is also an X-Men character technically.
True.
Number 6 is Doctor Strange. Number 7 is The Sacrificers issue 1. Not Marvel. This is a Rick Remender creator-owned book, by the looks of it. Number 8 is Star Wars Dark Droids. Number 9 is Conan the Barbarian. So there's a new Conan book out apparently. And then number 10 is Amazing Spider-Man Annual. I was glad I saw the word annual because I was going to say if that's the next regular issue of Amazing Spider-Man under all these, that would be disastrous.
Free fall.
Oh yeah. So
that Conan book isn't from Marvel. It's from Titan Publishing. And it's from Jim Zub.
I didn't mean to suggest it was from Marvel.
Oh, okay. When you said a new Conan book, I thought because they had the license for a hot second.
Oh, did they? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, okay. I was reading. Well, it was. What's his name on the art? He did work with on Thor. Why am I drawing a blank? Anyways, the art looked great. Jason Aaron's Conan was okay from what I read, but yeah, Ribic. That had come to me. But yeah, it was Aaron and Ribic doing Conan the last time I had seen it, so...
as worth mentioning, this is listed as a digital exclusive, this Conan book, so I don't know if it just means there's bonus digital content or if just the book in general is digital only.
Right.
But, very good. So, yeah. Oh no, there is also an issue 1 that's not digital exclusive, which is also in this chart, which is interesting. They're selling it regular digital, but also the digital exclusive version.
Right.
Weird. But yeah, the regular one is down at like, I don't know, 19, something like that. So, I don't know what's going on there, but very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... Was it an exciting top 10 this week, I'll admit, but hey, you gotta do it. You gotta be consistent with the format.
Yep.
If nothing else, it upsets Matt.
Yeah, that's true. And I also like to see Tom Taylor at the top, so...
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, so... Yeah, as far as news goes, there was no comic book specific news this week, which makes sense because, you know, Comic-Con then solicits, you know, happened sort of back to back over the last few weeks. But there was a baffling bit of DC movie news this week, which is just murky in the waters as far as I'm concerned, and that is that Gal Gadot is claiming that she is working with James Gunn and Peter Safran to develop a Wonder Woman 3. Which, if you're rebooting, then just freaking reboot. Like what is this? Why are we maybe having her back as Wonder Woman? Like, and it's not that I thought she was bad as Wonder Woman necessarily, but
she was fine. It was the stories that she was associated with were maybe not the best.
I mean, one was solid enough with a dodgy third act. 1984 was terrible.
You guys don't understand how upset that movie made me.
But that's even besides the point. Like, even if her 2 movies were amazing, she's still part of that Zack Snyder Justice League. She's part of that world. This just murkies the waters. And like, is it really a reboot if we're keeping some of the major stars from the previous run? Like, like
this would have been like keeping Eric Bana in Incredible Hulk, right? You're either having a fresh start as a promise to the audience that this isn't going to be like the last, you know, several movies,
or you're not, and you can't really have it both ways. So I think this is just kind of bad news, quite frankly, if it's true.
Do you think this is just like when you have a little cousin and you give them a controller but it's not connected, so it feels like they're playing? So like, yeah, sure, gal, we're gonna develop something. It's like, don't pick up the phone call anymore. You know?
I mean, that feels still like the most likely thing to happen, is they just won't go anywhere, and then when they eventually want to do Wonder Woman again, it's like, oh, it's been 10 years, I'm sorry, gal, we need someone who's, you know, under 40 now, so, you know, not that she's over 40 just now, but you know what I mean,
No.
like, when time passes, they'll maybe be able to use that as an excuse. Yeah.
I mean, when was the last time she was in something where she wasn't Wonder Woman? Like, she's not a prolific actress. Like, I don't see her in a lot of stuff. The only other movie I've seen her in is the Fast movies.
She was in that Netflix movie with The Rock.
Okay.
Don't ask me what the name of it was, because I don't remember. But
Yeah, there's that action one with Ryan Reynolds, right?
yes, that sounds right. Yes.
So,
yeah, so she's basically got this now. Although maybe they'll somehow bring her back in Fast and the Furious. They've done weirder things in that franchise.
apparently they brought Han back, so he was in the trailers. So who knows?
Oh, what a timeline.
Movies are wild.
Yeah, yeah. So the last time we heard about a Wonder Woman 3, for the record, was when, like, basically Patty Jenkins left the project, and basically it seemed to be that Gunn and Safran said, yeah, all the plans they were drawing up for their third Wonder Woman movie didn't really fit in with anything we were doing with the universe. And what's funny about that to me, which sounds like a reasonable thing to say, but what's funny about that to me is that I also think that Wonder Woman 1984 did not fit with anything that was going on in any of the other, because even at the time it was like, this is weird, like Justice League sort of like the Justice League movie and Batman v Superman acted as if Wonder Woman hadn't really been in the public eye since World War One. Like, she's been in hiding this whole time. And then all of a sudden, we've got all this stuff in 1984, and she's been operating for decades, and all the rest of it. It really felt like Patty Jenkins just didn't care about the shared universe and just wanted to ignore it, which may be the right choice in a lot of ways. But I think it's just funny to me that they got away with it with that one, but now that technically someone is supposed to be overseeing it all and making it all work together, they're like, yeah, this third movie you had planned isn't going to work. And, you know, also, that second movie was dog shit. So, you know, all of it's kind of weird to me.
Not even Pedro Pascal could save it.
No, no. He was actively pretty hammy in that as well. And, you know, I like him in many a thing, but not so much that. Although, I will say this, he at least seemed like he was having fun in that movie. I'll give him that much. Yeah. So, yeah, my final point in this would just be, it's either a fresh start or it isn't, and this makes it feel like it's not a fresh start, so don't do it. That's my
I just don't
feeling.
understand recasting Superman and doing everything, you know, from the ground up there with Legacy, but then going back to Gal Gadot for...
It makes no sense. Yeah,
it doesn't, like... You know, it's not like they recast one or two characters in Superman and Cavill's coming back.
I mean, if you were going to keep her separate in the same way that Matt Reeves' The Batman is not part of the universe, then okay. It's still a bit weird because it's part of the old shared universe, but whatever. I guess that kind of works. But this, you know, at the face of it, this sounds like it's supposed to fit in with everything, which just feels like Let It Die. I mean, Aquaman 2 already feels like this weird afterthought of a movie that's just coming out to die whenever it does eventually come out. And I'm not even, like, I wonder if there's a legal reason why they can't write it off for tax reasons, and that's why it's still coming out, because I believe fully that they would have just canned it if they could get enough money back.
James Wan must have something in his contract.
Either that, I know this is a kind of a separate thing, but there's a video game called Skull and Bones, a pirate ship game, right? Which was announced years ago. Ubisoft were making it, and it's been like basically like they restarted development on it. They basically scrapped everything they had at one point after years of work and started again. And most of the time when you get that severe, it would just be cancelled. But apparently, because they got a tax break from one specific country in Europe, they legally have to release it at some point, so it's still coming. And I'm just wondering if, like, some of these movies like have something like that, where because they got like a a grant because they were shooting on this. Because
Yeah.
when you watch a movie to the end of the credits, you'll notice a lot of the time you'll get like, the Toronto Film Commission Fund, gave to this movie so they'd shoot in Toronto, and and the reason why they do that is because it pumps a lot of jobs into the city and so on and so on. But because of that, that's like a reason why they have to release the finished movie at some point. I'm wondering if some of these movies might have went the way of Batgirl, but because they had maybe either something like that or some legal thing somewhere else that just meant we can't scrap Aquaman 2, or we can't scrap potentially Blue Beetle as well.
Right.
But,
Yeah, I feel like Blue Beetle's too far along at this point for them to have, just pull it.
Oh, it is now, but
Yeah.
when they pulled Batgirl, like, everyone thought Blue Beetle was going to go as well, because it felt like it's the same size, give or take, if not smaller. But
Yeah. Every time someone brings up the Batgirl film, and I don't know if it was going to be good or bad or whatever, but it had potential, and it saddens me.
It would
every time I
probably,
think about
honestly, it was probably going to be a 6 out of 10 at best, and that's whatever. But it's the precedent they have set with doing that is a scary one. Which
it is.
We'll see. But there you go. That's the Wonder Woman movie drama. And again, all the actors and writers are on strike right now, so don't expect anything happening anytime soon anyway, regardless of who's saying what. So, which is a good question, actually. Should Gal Gadot be talking about potential projects to anyone right now?
I don't know. That's all murky type stuff right now. I know Stephen Amell caught some flack this week.
Oh, and rightfully, because he was being a dick.
Yeah. No. But I'm saying the stuff that came out, I did not realize that the Grant Gustin meme of the peace sign in front of Ollie's grave.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was a story behind that. It wasn't just him being silly. But it was apparently Stephen Amell was such a nightmare to work with that they were all happy that his character got killed off. And that was the first I was hearing of this. So I didn't know if he had heard about it before.
I don't think I heard about that. I mean, Connor was telling me this week that Stephen Amell hates that meme.
Yeah. And that makes me think there's some truth to it if that's the case.
Maybe that's why he hates it.
And so
it feels like he kept it kind of quiet publicly while the shows were on, but it feels like since Arrow's ended, he's kind of shown his ass a few times to this point, and saying the past week that he doesn't support the strike, and then promoting, like, kind of like try to slyly promote his new season of his show by like taking Instagram photos in front of his billboard. Like, and it's like, it's not just like one, he's like, hey, look, I'm on a billboard. It's like, no, here's like 5 photos of me posing in front of the bit, like, come on, you're being a dick.
Yeah. There's just this thing that you have to, if those are your people, you support them, right? And it's like publicizing your show that's already been shot, that's going to come out, takes the back seat to try to get stuff made later, right? Like, to me, it's a cost-benefit analysis that you could easily not post those pictures promoting your show.
There was, Matt Damon said this was right before the strike happened, because the Oppenheimer premiere was literally happening in the hours before the strike kicked in.
Yeah.
And he was saying something like, basically to the effect of, like, we're doing this for the 95% of actors who need the support and need the help from everyone. Obviously, the Matt Damons of the world, and maybe even the Stephen Amells, don't need the protections anymore because they're successful enough that they're set.
Right.
But the point is that when you see a famous actor, picketing with all the other actors, it's because they're trying to support all the up and comers who are struggling to pay for health insurance, who are struggling to do all these other things.
Yeah, they're using their spotlight to shine a spotlight for others, right? Like, they're trying to bring attention the best way.
Whereas Stephen Amell's got more of a "F you, got mine" kind of attitude.
Exactly, and I hate that. So, and it makes me not want to watch Heels, even though I enjoy the first season. I'm not going to re-up Stars right now after hearing what he said. I
never finished season 1. It was all right from the few episodes I saw, but it was never something.
Yeah, it was enjoyable, but I don't think it's worth crossing a picket line for.
Absolutely. Nothing is, and that's kind of the point. So I do not like this guy's work that I'm about to mention, but props to Seth MacFarlane for donating $1 million to like help support everyone who's not working right now.
Yep. I saw The Rock has been given too.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I saw The Rock put some money into the fund, like over $1 million, I want to say. So good on these big names that have the money to give that are helping. Because, there was that famous Ron Perlman video about there's multiple ways to lose your house.
He was threatening to anyone who doesn't support the strike.
Well, context was it had been leaked out that a high up executive at one of the major film companies had said they'll keep this going as long as it takes and until people start losing their houses, because then they'll be worthy to make a deal. And so Perlman got on there and was like, hey, there's more than one way to lose a house, buddy. We know who you are. We know where you live.
I saw it.
Be glad that.
Yeah, after Ramel said what he said, a few days later, obviously there was the PR kind of like, I kind of, I was being an idiot and I said some things silly. Like, he was doing the rounds. And like obviously everyone's like, yeah, he got a few phone calls about what he said. And I just saw someone say, or Ron Perlman. Showed up with a baseball bat, maybe.
Green Arrow meet Hellboy. So,
do you know, it does make me wonder though, because in the comics, and this is pivoting into DC talk here, so this is genius. But in the comics, Oliver Queen is a very leftist character, and it occurs to me that in the TV show Arrow, his leftist like traits never really were a part of the show, and given how Stephen Amell has been kind of acting, I do kind of wonder if he has a reason. He's part of the reason for that, like. He doesn't want this bleeding liberal side of Oliver Queen in his interpretation, That
said, would have you wanted that on Arrow? I feel like it would have been like a not a costume version, but like had they done that, it would have almost been like an authentic version of the Denny O'Neil stuff,
I mean, it would be so. I mean, it's a lot more generic the way it is. Even if it fails, trying, I would say, is a better attribute than not. Would be my thing.
I just wouldn't want it to look like, because that was one of my favorite things about Oliver Queen as a character, right? Is when they get into the politics of it, because he is on the side, right? He's a billionaire, but he's out there trying to make things better.
Yeah, and that show in 8 seasons, I don't think I remember much.
Any type of
like if there was any political stuff, it was very minor. I don't remember any big swings.
But maybe what I'm saying is I don't trust that Arrow team to tell a nuance.
That's a fair statement. But I'm just questioning if it was him specifically. I'm not really saying if it would have been the right thing on that particular version.
If he squashed it.
Whereas, Supergirl, by comparison, I remember them tackling a lot of subjects. Again, it wasn't always good. It wasn't always done with a deft hand by any means, but there was attempts to tackle tough subjects. Whereas, Arrow, I mean, it had a gay character or two, I suppose, but that was about it. Like, there wasn't any... it wasn't the hard traveling heroes type stuff that we associate with Oliver Queen. So and it kind of still goes to this day, which is why I always like when him and Bruce end up on opposite sides. Because Bruce wants to help as well, but Bruce isn't out on the front lines like Ollie is. So Ollie, there's always that built-in frustration with Bruce that I like seeing from Ollie. Yeah, well, okay, we kind of wrapped that round into DC somehow, so that's nice. All right, well, let's talk about comics then. So, Night Terrors, Batman issue 2, Joshua Williamson writing with Guillem March on art.
First off, not nearly as entertaining as the first issue.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
But somehow we ended back in the alleyway of the Wayne murders twice in this issue.
Twice. Also, we got the most boringly named name for the bat creature. It's just Gunbat, and I was like, we could have done numerous different things, like Pete last time with the Bat Retta.
Yes. I forgot I said that, but you're right. I'm a genius. So, I agree.
I'm just saying, but this wasn't bad. It was just there, like. This is a story that we've read a bunch of times with Bruce coming to terms with his trauma.
Yeah,
it didn't do anything different.
What's so funny is I saw an article on Newsarama as I was just looking to see if there was any news to talk about, and there was a headline. I didn't click on it to see what it said, but there was a headline that said Batman needs to move on from his origin story. And I'm thinking, oh, I agree with this. But then I read the rest of the headline, and it said, and Night Terrors is doing exactly that. What?
Did we read the same issue?
What? I guess their interpretation, I having not read the article, is that this is a finishing chapter in Bruce obsessing about the alleyway, which will make a difference. Like, other writers are going to do it, but...
yeah, which if I believe that this was going to change things going forward, because Williamson isn't the Batman writer, though.
He's not, no.
So if this was Zdarsky doing this, and it was tying in some of the way that I feel like these other books are, like, I feel like the stuff that happens on Poison Ivy will play out because that's Poison Ivy's regular writer, right? Yeah. But here it's Williamson, and I'm glad that Williamson gets to put a cap on the character and having Bruce come to terms with the alleyway. But is Zdarsky going to pick this up, or are we just picking up from where he left off? Like, this never happened, right?
There is some silly stuff though. So when he's in the alleyway again, and a bunch of evil little Bruce Waynes start attacking him.
That's pretty great.
He takes off flying and just casually says, yeah, I don't really want superpowers in the real world, but in here, like, I basically have all of Superman's powers. Yeah. And he just flies through the sky, and I'm like, all right, okay, I guess we're doing that.
I can take because Batman in the dream world, right?
Sure.
I mean, this is really because Superman more than anything, because he compares it to Clark, right?
Yeah. And for some reason, there's a couple of panels sort of like referencing Dark Knight Returns for some reason.
Well, so on there, I read that as he says, like, it's going through a progression of things, of nightmare scenarios, and he goes, and some that are lies. So I took that as Williamson going, like, we're not getting caught up on the Dark Knight Returns version of Clark and Bruce, you know. So that's how I read that piece.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? As a nightmare scenario, we're not going to get Batman versus Superman type deals.
So Batman goes to the secret door that's in his mind, and then Insomnia shows up, and Insomnia's like, "Oh, is the Nightmare Stone? Is that behind this door?" And Batman's like, "No, I don't have your stupid Nightmare Stone." And then he morphs into a slightly different outfit. It's not a bat outfit, but this thing in Guillem Archie's art looks so goddamn ugly.
I'm like, what was different of it? And then I look, and instead of the cowl coming down over the shoulders, right? The cape is coming out of his neckline. So he gave it a very 90s. Like, this felt like the, what's his name? Kelly. Oh, God. I'm not a big fan of the art. He does the big ears.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
This makes me think of, like, when people draw Hawk's cape from Hawk and Dove. I was getting that vibes. Because I actually like the cape coming out of the shoulder. That's or the neck, I should say. That's what I like with Superman's cape. I don't like when it's like these shoulder pad looking things.
Yeah.
But typically Batman's cowl becomes his cape, whereas here it's kind of separate from his cape, and it looks a bit weird.
I like the idea that the cowl and the cape are one piece. You know? And it gives them that silhouette that I really like. Here, you're right. It gives them Hawk from Hawk and Dove vibes.
Yeah. Also, Batman. When Insomnia first shows up and he says, "Hey, I've got your new pet here," I actually had to look at it closely to realize it was the gun bat, because there's so little detail on this thing, and for some reason the entire head and gun is red. And I get that this might be covered in blood, but it's not like, painted in blood.
No. Gesundheit.
Jeez. So yeah, Batman's also got Neo powers in here. He stops a bunch of bullets by putting his hand out, and he.
Which again, it's a dream, whatever. Like I'm
not really complaining. Other than just I'm sick of dream logic, because that's all we've had for these last goddamn 5 weeks.
Bro, we're over halfway. That's what I keep telling myself.
Yeah, we're in the over the hump, as they say. But Batman rips the gun out the gun bat's head, or bat gun's head, whatever way around it was, and he opens the door, only to go back into the goddamn alley. That's what's behind the door. The secret door in his mind is the alleyway. To me, this is Williamson saying that the door that Batman locks everything behind is the thing that has defined him. So why was it locked up in his brain? Right? I don't.
It doesn't make any sense, does it?
But we've already seen the alley in this very issue, so just seeing it again, like having that be what's behind the secret, this locked door in his mind, what's behind there, and then open it to see the same thing we already saw earlier on this issue, and last issue, and also every, say, 10 or 12 issues of every Batman comic ever, you piece of shit.
Why was the door locked and chained if this was just something we've already done?
And we get this scene, which, conceptually I don't hate, which is Batman talking to a young Bruce Wayne who's inside his mind and basically saying, when you grow up, you're going to be alone, you're going to be in the shadows, but you're going to find children who make you better, referencing the Robins and the Batgirls. You're going to find friends. He references Superman and Wonder Woman. And, so it's like that moment on its own in a vacuum is nice enough.
And he's, talking about you'll never be alone because you'll always be surrounded by family. And it's this group. It's the Justice League. It's Alfred. It's Gordon. It's all the Robins and the Bat family. And so just this idea that there's this little boy who's alone, right? Because they mentioned, too, that which was new to me, that he was in the alley for like 90 minutes before a cop wandered by.
That sounds like a new detail.
And I'm just like, ugh.
Or maybe it's a deep pull from, like, I don't know, one specific version of it.
Right, but that's something that I wasn't familiar with in the Bat origin, right? And so the fact that, yes, he was this boy that was alone in the alley, with the corpses of his parents, but one day he'll find, the support structure in the family. And I do like that idea.
It's a good thing he didn't get hungry in those 90 minutes. Might have been a really, monstrous sight to arrive to.
If he was a cat, definitely would have happened. So,
Hey, my cats have my permission. If I die, they can sustain themselves.
I'm glad that they have, because they're not going to wait for your permission.
They would. They're...
He's like, I trust them.
I trust them implicitly. I trust them more than Connor. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, I mean, come on, it's Connor.
But of course, Batman thinks he's waking up. He thinks the connection to Boston, he thinks Boston Brand's leaving his body, Deadman, and he wakes up in Arkham Tower. Although we know that, Deadman took his body away from there, so something's not quite clicking for us. But then he looks outside, it looks like the apocalypse, and Damian shows up, and he claims that it is the real world that he's in, but that we've lost. And Damian's holding a big gun in his hand, and that's the cliffhanger, and it says, to be continued in Night Terrors 3 and 4. I cannot tell you how little I cared about these last 2 or 3 pages. Like, I just don't care. I don't, because he's clearly not in the real world, I don't think, because...
I don't know, because only the last time that we saw Damian was in the backup of this last Batman.
True.
So, and he was going to go about his own way of defeating Insomnia. So, like, if he's showing up and saying that, we've already lost and stuff, I think that's supposed to be monumental. But I don't know, like...
Yeah, I don't know, the whole thing feels a bit weird to me. I guess a part of it's just that I'm just so checked out of Night Terrors as a story now. Because issue 2 was such a letdown, I think, that... Okay, this is the real world. Batman's awake in it. How did he get back to the same spot where he fell asleep? Because the dead man put his body back? Because Dead Man wasn't finished with his body last issue, if I remember correctly.
No. But Dead Man did try to jump, though, into Insomnia, right? Before the Night Terrors?
He did, but that wouldn't make his body teleport back to where it was.
No. But, yeah. But maybe he did put him back. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see that they had to get back, because don't forget, Insomnia is supposed to be in Arkham Tower. His physical body.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe Deadman ends up back at Arkham Tower searching for Insomnia, the real person.
Yeah, maybe this will overlap where we'll see them go in issue 3 to Arkham Tower, and then Batman will conveniently wake up where he was left.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's issue I did not like, right? There's one little, seed of an idea in the conversation between Batman and his younger self about the future being okay. That's a fine idea. The rest of it is just a bunch of fluff with Batman having Superman powers, fighting young Bruce Waynes. We see the alleyway multiple times, Insomnia monologuing. And then, on top of all that, you've got Guillem March art, which I think is worse than the last issue. This felt even messier to me, this issue.
This felt more rushed. Yeah. Feels like he had more of a lead time with the first issue. Because that art didn't, despite being Guillem March, I would say it was pretty solid Guillem March art.
Yeah,
So
you can kind of tell that, like, I think the last page clearly had a bit more effort put into it,
Yep.
because the last page looks all right for Guillem art art, but
Right.
a lot of the pages where there's a lot of panels, or even just the page before where Batman's waking up, it just looks a little bit, I don't know, like less detailed than he usually does.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And you're talking about like the lack of details on the gun bat, on that
Yeah,
one
and
page.
that smaller panel. It looked more like he did last time in the following pages, but that first panel where he's really small.
Yeah.
And obviously you do less detail when something's small, but this was so much that I didn't get immediately that this is what it was. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a gun sticking out of a bat's head. I didn't realize that because it's red for some reason. So, it's yeah. The art's not good.
No.
It's a very, very skippable issue. I don't think it really offers much, and ultimately, it was just kind of like killing time until Batman's awake again. Unless something Batman learned in his dream is going to help them, like, win, but I doubt it.
Yeah, what's gonna help them win? Now that he's up, like there's nothing. As he came to terms with his inner child, has nothing to do with the Nightmare Stone, nothing to do with insomnia. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Very, very murky.
can't recommend it in any way, shape, or form. What are you rating Night Terror's Batman, Matt?
This is a 4.5.
Yeah, I'll just go the straight 4, I think.
Yeah.
Nice and neat. 4 out of 10. Alright, Night Terror's Poison Ivy, issue 2. WIllow Wilson writing, with Atagun Ilhan on the art. So you read this, Matt. You read the first one as well, so take it away.
I did. So the entire premise is, is this Poison Ivy's dream house, right? And as we come to find out through the course of the issue, that everything that is happening is, this domestic bliss that she's looking for is what she thinks that Harley wants. And it becomes Ivy's nightmare because now she has lack of agency. So it's like she's just doing things to go through the motions. And the art is very creepy. I'm not a fan of it. But it is very unnerving. So, like, when she starts encountering the people from the neighborhood who are all these Bat characters, right? You have Bruce and Selena and Penguin and Harley. They all have these, like, dead-eyed grins on their faces. And it's very unnerving. And, if I was a fan of the art, it's kind of Rosmo-esque. So it was taking me out a lot, being like, I wish the art was better. So as Ivy's coming to terms with this, dream house, and is it what she wants? Is this what Harley wants? Like, is this a dream or is it a nightmare? Janet from HR is going through and trying to escape the Mad Hatter because she has jumped in somehow to Pam's dream. And this is one of the issues that I'm having with Night Terrors is there's no rules for how the nightmare scenarios are working, right? Why is Janet from HR able to get into Harley's dream? Why isn't she having her own nightmare? Right? And we've seen this in other issues, right? Why were the Titans dreaming together?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Versus why is Dick by himself? So it's just more of that. But what G. Willow Wilson does here is Janet is almost Ivy's constant, right? Because she doesn't know where Harley is. She knows the Harley in her dream isn't, our Harley. From the non-nightmare realm. And so it's Ivy's connection with Janet, the lady that she had saved before she, went on this anti-hero journey, that kind of reawakens her as going like, well, no, I want to do what I want to do. And Harley's going to be okay with that because Harley wouldn't put me through these scenarios of living a domestic life. She knows what I'm about. I know what she's about. So Janet ends up escaping the Mad Hatter and ends up coming down onto the street. And that's where the whole dream, it kind of reminded me of Inception when all the people, like when they realize you're not supposed to be in the dream and then just like the riot happens and they all start coming at you. That's what happens here with Ivy and Janet from HR. And so towards the end, Ivy reawakens her powers because Janet reminds her, like, yeah, you're Pamela Isley. You are Poison Ivy. You're not, you are not what other people think of you. You've made up your decision. That's how we met. You made up your mind. And so they end up facing down all of these, all of the fake people from the dreams, and Ivy reawakens all of her plant powers. And Janet starts yelling at her to wake up, to make it stop, because as she starts fighting back, the room starts melting, right? And she wakes back up in, it looks like, so she's in her jumpsuit, and this is where I got a little confused. She ends up waking in a park in Gotham. And Janet from HR is there, because it doesn't look like she's at her swamp house where she began, so it's a little bit weird. But yeah, she just comes up with the realization as the room's melting, right? That where's it at? The nightmares can reveal your true nature, and what lies beneath your fear is rarely what it seems. So that's where she comes to terms with being who she wants to be. But yeah, it ends with them in what looks like Central Park in Gotham. Awakened, so like I don't know if this is the hero saved the day, now everybody can wake up or what, but I appreciate that G. Willow Wilson was trying to tell a story with Ivy that's based off of the run before, right? It's not just night terrors, so you could read this in the next run, and it will inform probably what goes on. But yeah, the art's a big step down from Mauricio Takara, and it's just not my cup of tea. It's not bad, like it's not like the breakdowns are terrible. You don't get that confused with following the action or anything. It's just these bug-eyed people are just not fun to look at.
I mean, I suppose if there's one silver lining about all this is that the regular artists and the ongoings have got 2 months to get ahead a little bit. Yeah,
that's true. So yeah, I mean, it's an enjoyable read, but it's not great. So this is a 5.5.
Okay. Night Terrors Ravager issue 2, Ed Brisson with Dexter Soy. This is rounding out our Night Terrors books of the week. Obviously, last month I also did Black Adam, but that was completely pointless. I did not want to read that. So, Ravager, it kind of works as a horror story. It works a little bit because it seems like it's leading into an actual story in Batman the Brave and the Bold issue 4, which will probably be multi-part, which means it feels a bit more relevant to something at least. Because the story, it's all about this villain, the Murder Man, trying to get into the real world through Ravager. And when Ravager's woken up at the end of the issue by Stormwatch, she's like, hey, did Anthony come out with me? And she's worried about it. And I don't think so.
He's I don't know.
Yeah.
You just woke up.
But when they leave, the final couple panels are the blood on the counter, and we know that the Murder Man's made out of blood starting to move, and it's to be continued. And I'm like, okay, you know what? This set up a story that makes this a bit more relevant.
Well, and it feels like there were stakes, right? We feel like with the Murder Man that, this is just a personification of her becoming her father, but it's no, it was more than that. It was this entity that was trying to use her. Yeah,
I was going back and forth when I was reading it because I was thinking it was just that, and maybe he's saying he wants to get out. Yeah. But the ending actually says no. On some level, this thing is a real entity that wanted out through her, and because of that, it instantly makes him more interesting and almost anything else in any of the nightmares and any of the other issues that we've read. So
because he talks about we can hurt you here, but you can't hurt us, and then he cuts her cheek, and then that's where the blood comes from there at the end. And so, again, it feels like there was actual stakes.
That's how he's traveled, Jay. He's traveled because he's cut her and he's went through that blood, which is cool. And also Dexter Soy's art is he should change his name. It would fit him.
Dexter art.
But yeah, Dexter Soy's art is very good. It was very good in the last issue. It's very good in this issue. It's a very quick read because it is a lot of action. It's a lot of Ravager running, fighting with this evil version of herself and these sort of monstrous henchmen. There's kind of a real body horror segment where she is hiding next to a house, and the couple that live in the house fuse together and become a giant spider.
Yeah, it was very The Thing-esque, John Carpenter's The Thing.
So this was definitely much better than.
I had a lot of fun reading this. So I messaged Pete because I was cutting it close on time to find out if he was going to read this one. It was the last one I had, and he goes, "Yeah, I read it." So I'm glad that I stuck through, because this was out of the Night Terrors, easily the most enjoyable. Because it told a cohesive story, right? It wasn't just
and to be fair,
Rose interacting with dream logic.
Yeah, and to be fair, it did. It felt that way last month as well. Last month on This Week, Ravager was definitely the best Night Terrors book. Yeah. Well, maybe because that was the same week as First Blood last month, so maybe technically that was. But out of the tie-ins, it definitely stuck out as being the one. And then this month again, it actually, because it's actually brought this thing into the real world, it's going to have a story. And to be honest, I might read the story. Like, the story in Batman Brave and the Bold, issue 4. I know the King and Gerard story isn't back till issue 5, but I might read that one story though, because I'm a little invested now, because I'm like, this thing's followed her into the real world. I want to see where that goes.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what the Stormwatch team is, if it's got Peacekeeper 1 and Ravager on it. Yeah,
it's a weird team for sure. But I like Ravager enough that, she's like a conduit in,
Yeah. I just wonder, how are they different than Suicide Squad at this point? Because they seem to be answering to Waller.
It's a good question. Maybe Waller's given up the suit. She's realized that working with actual maniacs is not the way forward, and maybe just anti-heroes who are actually going to obey rules, not because they have bombs in their neck, might actually be the way to go.
Yeah. Well, and I like too when Peacekeeper 1, she's like, Waller's like, you need to wake her up. Like, we need her for this craziness that's going down. And I want to know why Peacekeeper 1 wasn't asleep, right? How come he didn't get hit with the Nightmare Wave or whatever?
Because he's more machine than man now.
Maybe, right? I wouldn't be adverse to that.
I mean, that's my answer. If you're asking me my guess, that is my honest guess.
But if that's the case, then why did it get Cyborg in Titans?
Because he's still... Because his head's still very human,
Well, yeah, maybe Peacekeeper 1 doesn't dream. Therefore, if you don't dream, you can't have nightmares. I don't know, right? So, just
not all cyborgs are built different, Matt.
No, that's true. I don't
built the same. You know what I mean?
I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush here that all half man, half machines are the same. But what I was getting at with the Waller stuff in Ravager is when she's like, wake her up, and he pulls out what I assume is like adrenaline, right? To pump her with, because it's very.
I was thinking it was something more unique for DC. Just they've got some special thing, but basically,
whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say Venom or anything like that, but something along those lines, right? And that's what that's what awakens her as she's defeating this murder man, which I'm still kind of confused on how she defeated him. Did she just blast him with water because he's made of blood? Like, is that what that was?
No. It was like T2. It was like liquid nitrogen, I think. Yeah. Okay. Because he was saying, nothing can hurt me because I made of blood. Like, everything just goes through. And she, throws her katana at the tanks of... I mean, I
just wish it was a little bit more clear that was CO2 or whatever.
It's a little bit green, which did throw me off, but he does definitely freeze. Like, he freezes and then she, like, smashes him. So it's very T-1000. So, although that said, just like the T-1000, he's starting to reform at the end. So
you gotta get every drop, right? So, but this was very enjoyable. Brisson has a good voice for Rose too. The way that she's interacting with the Murderman people and talking to herself, almost it kind of brought that nightmare scenario really up there. Like, she doesn't want to be like Slade, and she's telling her younger self, like, he's just going to abandon you, so stop now. Like, it only leads to heartbreak. So I liked all of that stuff as well as character development goes.
Yeah. So I was just looking at the solicits for Brave and the Bold 4 and 5, and there's a Stormwatch story that's running through both of them, and Ed Brisson's in the writer list, so I assume he's writing that one, which would make sense.
Right. Okay.
So
definitely curious to see where this goes.
Yeah, and a Night Terror's tie-in, which I guess that would worry us before, but now that we've read this, we understand why it's a tie-in. It's not worrying now; it just makes sense.
Yeah.
But in a Night Terror's tie-in, Stormwatch members Flint, Phantom 1 Core, and are trapped. They're missing a member there. I assume it's meant to say Ravager at the end.
Ravager.
are trapped in a nightmarish world where their deepest fears lurk around every corner. Wait, this doesn't sound right. Their fear is just beginning because a new enemy has emerged, the Tempest. I wonder if this has changed or something, because that feels like it's kind of off. I will say this though, the one for issue 5, which I just looked at as well, sounded more like it had anything to do with Night Terrors. So maybe this one does, but I don't know. Maybe it's just that they're still in the. Maybe it's about Peacekeeper and Ravager, like waking them up out of the real world or something.
Yeah.
And building the team that way.
All I know is that those names that got brought up sound expendable.
Oh, yeah.
Like Peacekeeper 1 and Ravager on a whole different level than some of these other ones.
That's true, yeah. They don't mention Peacekeeper or Ravager, but they mention Flint, Phantom 1, and Core. Matt, off the top of your head, can you tell me who any of those 3 characters are?
I cannot, and I roll deep in DC.
Yeah,
so,
I can't either, so...
Nah.
Alright, well, there you go.
They're definitely expendable, so...
Yeah.
It's like Matt. Slipknot in that first Suicide Squad movie. It's like, I've never heard of this character at all.
That makes sense. When you said it's like Slipknot and then paused, I went, the band? Like, what? What are you talking about?
Oh, no. I feel like Corey Taylor would give Insomnia a run for his money. That dude has some scary masks.
All right, what are you giving Night Terrors Ravager to?
I'm going to give this a solid 7.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think 7 out of 10 is fair. I think, it still kind of hurts a little bit because it is tied to Night Terrors, but it is probably the most actual self-efficient tie-in because it does actually lead to something.
Yeah, if this wasn't a tie-in, if this was just like a Ravager special, like we had the Power Girl stuff, right?
Yeah.
This would still work without the frame of Night Terrors. It would just be she's having a nightmare, right? And Peacekeeper 1 has to find her or whatever.
Yeah, you would just...
It still works.
Yeah, you would just have maybe a slightly different reason why she's trapped in a nightmare, and that'd be it. Yeah. That's it. So...
Oh.
All right, there you go. Adventures of Superman, John Ken, issue 6. Tom Taylor writing with Clayton Henry on the art. Of course, Superman and Justice Superman is going to execute Batman and Harley Quinn, and Cyborg and Wonder Woman are telling him, "Hey, we got to go find this John, this other son of yours, because he might try and interfere." And Justice Superman's like, "No, it won't come to that. Cyborg's built a teleport gun or something to boom him back to his own Earth." Yeah, that's his plan.
A vibrational cannon or whatever.
Yeah. So the issue from there though is John basically saying, I have to stop these executions, I'm not letting them happen. And he goes around all the various allies of this Superman, starting with Barry, and he just kind of appeals to him and basically says, hey, are you really comfortable with these guys being executed? And he's like, I heard your heart skip a beat, you're not. And basically asks him to stand down. And then just kind of deals with some of the others. He puts the Wonder Woman here on Titan because it'll take her too long to get back. It's just a delayer, so he's got time to do what he's going to do.
Yeah, and he takes the lasso of truth, right?
He takes the lasso of truth from her to go and talk to Damian to basically say, hey, I'm telling you I believe in you, and I'm holding this while I say it, which means that it's true. You can be better than this. And it all builds up to this confrontation with Injustice Superman, where Justice Superman is not very happy that John has broke out Batman and Harley Quinn. He's very upset by this. And John effectively sort of gives him a lesson in what Superman is. And plays the message that Lois made for him here, talking about his kindness and compassion, and that's why he's a Superman. It's not the powers that make him a Superman, it's all these qualities that make him a Superman. And John's like, you have to pay for what you've done. Everyone has to obey these same rules, including you. And there's a moment, probably the best moment of the issue, where John goes all electric blue Superman. He's running in for a fight. You think they're about to have a showdown, and John instead hugs him and tells him he believes that he can get better, effectively. And it's the compassion instead. And I think that swerve, it's kind of it makes me think of back when we were doing Doomsday Clock, and we kept saying Superman's eventually going to be the one to win against Manhattan, but he's not going to win in a fight. It's not going to be punches. It's going to be convincing Manhattan to believe in people through who he is, through his nature. And sure enough, that's what kind of John does here with Injustice Superman.
He feels the compassion. And so I read this early in the week, and then there's, as Twitter does, there's so much controversy about it. and people coming after Taylor, and Taylor's so good at pivoting and turning these people's words on themselves. And I feel like if you feel like this is a controversial ending of John hugging this, it's not his dad, but let's just say this version of his dad, to appeal to compassion, that's a very Superman ending. And I feel like if you think that's controversial, I don't think you like Superman the way that you think you do. That was just my take. I
didn't hear about this controversy. This is completely unknown to me. I never had a thought in my head that there was anything.
Me neither. So I read this and I was like, yeah, this is how this ends, right? Is this Superman that has gone out of his way to conquer the world, right? And it's always this thing. They always talk about it, that's why Superman's not believable, because anybody with that much power can't be trusted, right? And this is that played out, the Injustice world, is Superman taking full control. And how do you defeat him? It's not through punches. It's through the compassion. And I don't think it's that controversial, but man.
Yeah, it's the combination of John saying he's sorry for his loss, but he needs to, he can't just get away with everything he's doing. Yeah. Hearing the message from Lois, which is basically this idea that his Lois wouldn't be happy that he did this. Like, if his Lois was around, she'd be judging him for it. And it's right after this Superman breaks Jay's arm to just show how kind of like vicious he is as a character. So it really sort of accentuates that. But I think the other thing I like about all this is that at the end of the story, John's takeaway when he's beamed back to his own world is that he kind of understands better than he did before. Because one of the big differences between John and Clark that we've pointed out in the last couple of years is that John is a Superman who's willing to get more involved in the politics of the world, where Superman tries to stay out of them, not because he doesn't have an opinion and doesn't care, but because he doesn't want to sort of, exert too much control and become a tyrant. He doesn't want to be dictating to the world what their choices are. And John feels more comfortable doing it, but at the end of this story, he understands the fears that his father has, because now he's seen this other version of Superman who is taking complete control, who is forcing his law upon the land. And I think the fact that that's what makes this so good. It's not just that we see these different versions of the character story play out, it's that it actually affects John's own understanding of his real father, his real Superman. And that makes it, and
it's a learning moment for John.
Well, yeah, but it's like any TV show where you have like the stories of the week, and you'll have a guest star on, and it's their story technically, and then by the end of the episode, they've wrapped up their story and they leave. Good writing will always make that story about this other character. It's actually really about one of the main characters. It's actually about one of the characters who's always there. It will thematically relate to something they're going through, so it's always relevant. And I feel like that's kind of the same thing here, is that, you've got all these other universe characters that John's interacting with throughout this arc for the most part, but all of it's been kind of done to give him this experience to appreciate the real characters that we do spend time with going forward. So it feels like it's contributed something to the character and to the other characters and to the world that we actually do continue reading, which makes it more than just a gimmicky, here's some other versions to like have fun with for a few issues kind of thing. So all that stuff was good. I like the ending. I think the compassion worked. Obviously there is a tease at the end for a story coming up in November, so this was
feels like it's tied to that Beast Boy stuff, right?
Seemingly, yeah. But it is nice to know that John's going to be included in something, because there was nothing really directly planned for him after this. So having this book end with this tease of him coming back to the world, something being wrong, he hears too much. He says it's loud. The world is loud. The people are screaming. What's going wrong? Something's wrong. And then it just says, to be continued in the adventures of. John Kent's adventures continue in Beast World, was what I was trying to say.
Beast World, yeah. So I will say that as the end of this miniseries, it's a little bit anticlimactic in not the story with Injustice Superman, because that was done, but where it goes, how they just beam him back with Cyborg's, vibrational cannon and whatever. I kind of would have wanted just this to end with, some wrap up for John, instead of just playing into this next thing. But I understand why they did it.
I mean, it depends to me if, we don't know who's writing all these books. If let's say there's a John Kent tie-in to Beast World that's written by Taylor, then I'll be like, okay, I kind of get it, because he's not done. Like, there's more of this to go. and we're kind of going to like, I don't know, whatever that might turn out to be.
Yeah.
Either way, though, I'm glad he's going to be involved. And given that that's a Titans focused story, it makes sense because he's kind of that. Not lineage, because he's actually much younger than all those characters, but he feels in universe about the same age as a lot of those characters now.
Well, there's that, and he's real close to Dick, right? So
he loves Dick. There's no denying that.
He does.
And that wasn't just a joke because he's bi. Okay, that was just a good joke.
I was gonna go with Grayson. Is that is his mentor, right? So, of course he'll get involved in anything that he needs to. So, but yeah, if it's not Taylor, I'll feel like this is a bit anticlimactic for his arc on John. But again, it's comics. I understand you have to always move forward.
Well, I think I get what you're saying, but I think it only works if this is truly the last that Taylor writes for him. Like, I think as a satisfying story about him going to this Injustice universe, I think it's completely lands. I think it completely hits the mark. Yeah. The only way it might feel like it's a bit weird is if it is just like the end of Taylor writing John as Superman, and therefore it feels like it's not much of an ending, I guess, in that sense. But what is there is actually really good. Like, I think the way he deals with this, and I've said this like almost every issue, but I think this is easily the best arc that he's written for John as Superman. I think it's better than all the arcs he had in the ongoing book that lasted like 20 issues or whatever it was.
Yeah, well, because he has a solid understanding of John as a character at this point. So everything the stuff that happens before he gets hit with the cannon is very fulfilling for John as a character. Yeah, and I think, and you say he understands John as a character, I would go a step further and say he's actually molded who the adult or the near adult version of John is, because a lot of that has come from his run in this mini. So he's actually probably not just as important as, say, Dan Jurgens in creating the character, but I think he's like probably the next important name in terms of like contributing to who he is and what type of character he can be. So, I'll agree with that.
So, we haven't really mentioned the art. I mean, Clayton Henry's Clayton Henry. We kind of say the same things. It's like, it's nice and clean. But the foreheads for me, it's they just sometimes I just don't like them. But it's just the way it is.
I get that. I like the not the actiony stuff, because the Wonder Woman stuff's not actiony, but like them going through space and stuff I thought looked really good. So that stuff, the stuff at the end with the hug, and it does ramp up the action really well. Like, him and Taylor work real well together build that tension. So
the layouts are good. Like John running towards them like they're about to fight and then hugging them. The layout, the pacing of that, so that when you turn the page and see the hug, the build up to it and then the reveal of the hug is perfectly paced. It's just how he draws heads. It's how he draws human heads that just doesn't work for me. And it's a pretty big thing to try and get over, because it's a lot of human heads when you're reading the comic book.
Dude, he's going to be so great on the leader book at Marvel. or Modok. He'll be great.
Or maybe just do a Coneheads comic. It'd be perfect for that.
Yeah. It's in mass quantities.
That said, though, how will you tell the difference between the Coneheads and the regular humans in the book? Maybe it'll be difficult.
That's why Clayton Henry's on it. Right? It's all about deception and But yeah, no, this is a nice way to a safe haven from night terrors. This book had been, especially this week when I needed it.
Yeah, especially since his other books right now aren't they're off for night terrors. Obviously, I cannot wait for Nightwing and Titans to be back next month. But this is what we've got this month from Taylor. Well, there might be a Dark Knights of Steel at some point as well, because that just pops in randomly, whatever it feels like apparently.
Yeah.
All right, what are you rating Adventures of Superman, John Kent, issue 6?
I mean, it was a straight 8.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think the heartfelt and the idea of like what makes you a Superman, it felt like a big character moment for John, and him showing this compassion and sympathy for this Superman while saying, no, you can't just be allowed to do what you do. And I like, actually, one thing that I'll add onto everything we've said is I like it leaves it ambiguous of like how much of an effect this has on Injustice Superman, because he's clearly affected by seeing Lois say these words from John hugging him, and then he's beamed away, and you don't really like. I think we're left to hope that he's going to change and like answer for his crimes and like volunteer himself up and try and like fix the world that he's made, but we don't know. He might not.
Right.
You know, but it leaves in that little glimmer of hope that maybe John's broke through to him enough that he might change.
Conversely, it could be that he didn't go far enough, and he doubles down.
True. I suppose. Maybe one day I'll revisit that universe, Taylor, to like tell more of the story. But if this is the last you see of it, I do think it's a nice little ambiguous moment of hope, perhaps. So. That's Adventures of Superman, John Kent. Justice Society of America, issue 5. Geoff Johns writing with Mikel, Janin, and Jerry Ordway on the art. So, we've been having some gaps between this issue, which is unfortunate, but... I was gonna say, I forgot where we left off on this because it had been a minute. Well, I mean, very quickly, it's like, oh, Helena went to talk to Batman. Okay, I'm in. I know where we are. Let's just go.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, shoot, what's going on here? I had to try to remember the Degaton stuff and everything that we had learned. But once it gets going, we're good to go.
Yeah,
within the first few pages.
To be fair to Johns, he does do that thing where he knows there's not going to be a recap page, so he has the narration, and like that's why people used to always joke that Green Lantern always started with, "My name's Hal Jordan, and I'm Green Lantern of Sector 2814." This book does that. It's like, "My name is Helena Wayne, and I am the daughter of blah blah blah, and I came from the future, blah blah blah." Like it explains the basics. It recaps you on the basics, so you can get going. It mentions Degaton, and we get into it, and she tells Batman about the future. She hugs him even. And is like, yes, you're going to die by this man you've not even met yet, blah blah blah. And interestingly, by the end of the issue, her future's gone, right? Yeah. They beat Degaton. That I was surprised by that. It happens this issue, but I guess we are 6 issues or 5 issues in, rather, out of 12. So we've got more stuff to do, and she's sticking around, but she's now like a paradox where her future that she came from doesn't exist, but she's here now anyway. So. Which is neat from a continuity point of view because we don't have to worry about Batman and Catwoman having a daughter at any point. It does make me very fascinated though to see like her interact with Damian at some point because she's kind of a sibling. Yeah.
He's going to be so upset because his best friend now is like a bunch older than him. And now he's going to have a younger sister that's older than him.
Yes, who's an adult. And, and not only that, I kind of want to see her meet... Helena Bertinelli as well. I want to meet other Huntress and like have like a Huntress like maybe discover why she took that name specifically. Maybe there was like a bit of a fangirl kind of thing going on there. I don't know.
I do like though that they compare her to Power Girl, right? As this kind of lost character who can make their own future. Is because she's Kara Zor-El from Earth 2. Yet and now you have. Yeah,
and they've been tied together before in like JSA and Earth 2 stories as this particular type of Huntress and that particular type of Power Girl.
Yeah, and so the fact that now, Power Girl is going by Paige and, through all the Leah Williams stuff, it makes me hopeful that they can do something similar with Helena and really make her stand out.
Yeah, so the JSA show up, and almost immediately Degaton shows up, and we get all these different Degatons from different parts of his timeline, all coexisting at the same time.
I love it, because we get them being able to beat up a Nazi child. So, it's great.
The way you said I love it there made me think of Naked Gun 2. When Leslie Nielsen, he's going undercover, right? Or not undercover, he's going into this meeting with all the bad guys, and he's got like wiretaps all over his chest, right? And he tells the other cops, including George Kennedy, that the catchphrase, the code word for when you come in and help me is, "I'll say I love it." I'll fit that into a sentence, and you know to come in. And the joke ultimately ends up being that they're parked against like a telephone pole, so they can't get out the van, so he's left in there on his own. But it's funny because he's standing there and they keep saying, "You smell like sewage," because he swam in through the sewage to get in there, right? Like, "You smell like sewage." Like, "Yes, I love it." And he just keeps saying "I love it" to everything they say to him, even though they keep saying things like, "Oh, you stink of shit, you smell of sewage." That's the way you said "I love it" there, it was the exact cadence of him saying it in that movie.
Gotcha. Oh, just look at that. And I don't think I've seen Naked Gun, as he said, 2?
Naked Gun 2.5 specifically.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that in a very long time. So, Anyway,
I watched them all last year, so they're relatively fresh. I remember.
That's right. They feel like your vibe though too. That's you're not big for stupid comedy, but you will dig the Naked Gun.
Well, they're actually quite witty. They're much wittier than a scary movie is.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. But anyways, it's Degaton coexisting across time, and we get the first one we see is like a younger version of himself, coming through, right, to face.
Well, he's like, I don't know, 30 or whatever.
Well, I mean, because the kid one.
No, he's not first though. We don't see him till after.
He's not first. Okay.
Because it's just like the regular one we've been seeing, and then it's like a bunch of adult versions who are all shown up to fight the GSA. The young kid shows up where Stargirl and Jakim are, because they're trying to find something from Degaton's past that they can use as a MacGuffin, basically, an artifact that'll let them, let Dr. Fate and Madame Xanadu do something with it. And sure enough, this kid, Degaton, shows up. And I love that he's wearing the exact same clothes as the adult Degaton is. But yeah, we basically get this big fight with the GSA fighting all these Degatons. We see kind of like glimpses through, like, Degaton sort of beams it into, I think, Xanadu, and Xanadu beams it to everyone else in the GSA, but we see kind of like his vision of what timeline will be like when he gets rid of the GSA. So you see like the past, which is a bunch of Degatons around like the circular table. You see the present, which is a bunch of Degatons and like this like military police basically like hanging up all the Bat family and the Outsiders. And then the future is a bunch of Degatons just having everyone killed, basically. Yeah. So it's like this really dark timeline. But it's mostly action. There's a great full-page spread of all the GSA in the middle here. It's got the GSA of the past, the present, and the future. And then when they win the fight, they all sort of fade back into their own parts of the timeline. And Stargirl shows up with a MacGuffin thing. And basically, they can't kill Degaton because of his weird timelessness quality. But they can trap him in the snow globe from the Time Masters. So he actually gets trapped with Flashpoint Batman and Martha Joker in the snow globe. That's where he's trapped.
That's where he belongs. Dr. Batman will keep him in line.
Yeah. So they acknowledge after this that this effectively has done something to the timeline. Like, some of their history has changed, but they're not sure what yet. And sure enough, the big cliffhanger is that Stargirl shows up with Our Man and Jay's daughter, setting up, of course, the special and some of the stuff we're going to do in the back half of this. So this is finally that Stargirl mini affecting things.
Playing in the Lost Children, they are found. And yeah, I really liked the JSA's Across Time segment. Yeah, that was really a high point.
This really felt like the final issue of a Geoff Johns arc, because it's a lot of action, some big 2-page spreads. Mikel Janin's art is gorgeous throughout, so it's really easy to just enjoy it because it does all look great. Also, you've got this really sad part right before that, though, where Helena's like wondering, okay, I'm stuck here now, but like, do I form a relationship with the Batman who's here, because I don't get to, I never really got to know my dad that much because he died when I was young. And then, but she sees that Batman says she can't stay here. Like, Batman's like distancing himself from her, which is a bit bittersweet. And it's like, you can kind of probably understand why he's making that choice, that it's this weird relationship that he doesn't want to deal with, that it's murky. So I do wonder, though, is she here now in present continuity for the long haul, or is it just till the end of this book? I'm very curious about that.
I would be willing to guess it's till the end of the book, because I feel like this is her book in the way that it used to be Stargirl's when Johns wrote JSA.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see everything through her point of view. So I feel like when this is end, they'll find a way to get her back, and when she returns, she'll be better off for it. From
like
JSA.
I said, I want to see her meet Damien. I want to see her meet, regular Huntress from the Birds of Prey. I want to see her meet Catwoman. Obviously, that should be an interesting meeting if they have that. All these potential scenes of her interact, or even the other Bat family, just her hanging out with the Batgirls for like an issue and having them ask all these questions about Batman's future, and like probably just thinking it's cool that Batman's got a daughter, and like, oh, you're so much better than Damien. I mean, the jokes practically write themselves.
I can see Steph going, so you went with Huntress and not Batgirl. I like it.
Oh yeah, maybe
know?
Babs will be like, wait, why Huntress? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not Batgirl? Like,
Right.
you know, you that was it's sitting right there. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Or Batwoman even, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential interesting like dynamics to having her interact with various characters. But it's interesting though that the Degaton plot's done and that we're now dealing with you know, the missing kids and like timeline like messiness. So I'm curious to see where we go from here.
And I wonder how much Judy's going to go in, because we know that Jeremy Adams is doing the mini with Jay and Judy.
It's just a special, not a mini, I think.
Oh, okay. So it's just a special. It's not a mini.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So maybe we will see more of that type of stuff play out here. And then I do know that the Green Lantern one, that special, is going to have to do with the Russian Red Lantern.
No, I think that's a mini.
Okay. Either way, I flipped them or whatever.
There was like 2 or 3 books announced in the last solicits that were all mini-series, I think. But I'm pretty sure there's a Jay Garrick and his daughter one that's just a special.
Okay.
You're making me doubt myself now, but I think it is.
I thought they were all minis, so but either way, I know that so I wonder how much of the stuff that John set up early on, like with the Russian Red Lantern and Judy Garrick and all this, is going to play out here in JSA, or is this now just going to become a JSA focus book, and we're going to see, you know, how that's going to play in with what, because King's playing with some JSA stuff too with Wonder Woman, right? Like we're getting some new, or am I confusing different storylines?
King's interested in a daughter. I don't know if we're getting Golden Age stuff.
Maybe what was the Golden Age stuff was in Snyder that never came out, right?
Yeah, that was built into 5G, which never.
Yeah, that's what I'm confusing it with. So, but yeah. Anyways, I'm just happy to have John's writing JSA again. And like you said, this was very much a John's story capper with the way that it goes, and there's just, you know, big feel good moments, like the arrival of the different Justice Societies across time. But yeah, really enjoyed it.
Okay, I'm a little confused now.
Uh-oh.
Because September solicits didn't have... Oh, was it October solicits? It must have been October.
I think it was the October solicits were the last ones that we...
This is why I'm getting confused. I'm looking at the
got through.
Yep. Hold on, I'm just want to confirm this. Alright, so there was the Alan Scott thing. There we go. Right, so Alan Scott Green Lantern issue 1 is 1 of 6.
Okay.
Wait, was that second? Yeah. Jay Garrick, The Flash issue... Oh, no, that is a mini.
That's what I thought.
But I think there's a special as well. I'm sure there's a special coming before that. Well, someone confirm in the comments. I'm sure there's a special coming before that.
Either way, with the way that Adams handled the Flash family, I'm excited to see Jay and Judy in there if we don't get them here. You know what I mean? So at least we know that that's coming down the line.
Yeah. Okay, well... I'll pop up soon. If I'm right,
Sweet.
There's definitely, but there's a mini. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's one of the 2 minis. We're getting the Flash one and the Green Lantern one. Anywho, it is interesting to see that stuff expand, and I'm excited that it is having an effect on some regular continuity. It's not just like in its own little JSA corner, you know. By having Adams do the Judy stuff with Jay and so on. I do appreciate that. It's feeling like it's not, because, you know, Doomsday Clock was fantastic. Not everyone agrees with that, but we thought it was fantastic, but it was very much sectioned off by the time it was getting near the end. It was like, okay, the rest of the continuity has just moved on away from it. So I'm glad that this stuff actually can be the status quo for a lot of these characters, and I'm enjoying it. Honestly, this is the best thing Johns has written since Doomsday Clock, I think. Yeah. It's fair to say. Because, you know, I don't know who's written for 3 Jokers, but...
Yeah. I mean, I like Lost Children, but I think this is a more cohesive story.
Yeah, I like Lost Children, but this is better than Lost Children is. This feels like a bigger deal. Part of it, obviously, as well, is it's got fantastic art from Janin.
Yeah.
So...
Throwing with his fastball here.
All right, what are you giving GSA issue 5?
I'm giving this an 8.5.
I'll just go to straight 8, I think.
Okay.
But it is really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. So... there you go. City Boy issue 3, Greg Pak rating with Minkyu Jung on the art. So this is bizarrely for a 6-issue mini. I wasn't expecting it to feel like it sort of ended an arc in issue 3, but it kind of felt like it did in a weird way. Which, you know, fair enough. If it's 2 3-issue arcs, it's 2 3-issue arcs. So last issue ended with him run into Superman, right? That was the cliffhanger. So a lot of this is Superman sort of trying to help him and encourage him to like talk to the city, because the city starts expanding, literally, and it's continuing. And there's this concrete dragon that's been created that he's not controlling anymore. And the guys that are working for Intergang are like, "Haha, it started." And when City Boy's like, "Hey, like I saw this vision of the city taking over the whole planet, and there were pits of fire," and that makes Superman be like, "Wait a minute, pits of fire, you say?
Like apocalypse? That's not good. We got to stop this."
Yeah, and the Intergang guy's like, "Yeah, there you get it, Superman," but it's too late. But luckily, City Boy, the whole story of this issue is him getting it under control, and it's all tied to his emotions and his like past, because he sees. Effectively, we see, because Metropolis is where he was abandoned by his mother, we see kind of that memory play out.
That trauma that is, formed at who he is.
Yeah, it effectively plays out like a sort of memory playing as a ghost, but obviously it's not literally a ghost. We know that he sees things that have happened because the city remembers, so it's kind of like it's, it's like he's seen a video playback of it via the city's like data, if that makes any sense.
And so I like there's a part here that Superman tells him, like, I know you can communicate, but you can't control. But you have to know, like, Metropolis loves us as much as we love Metropolis. And I love that that's Superman's wisdom that he grants on here. Is like, the city's not just glass and concrete, it's the people. And if you can make that connection to this, Metropolis dragon, we can get it back. If we remind Metropolis that the people are it, and it's the people.
I also like that when Superman tries to talk to the concrete dragon. He's like, "Oh, you're Metropolis. I'm going to talk to Metropolis because I love this city." And he tries to appeal to it, and it doesn't work. The dragon just screams at him,
takes off.
But yeah, it's this idea that he had a chance to talk to Metropolis like it was a living thing, but it's like, no, only City Boy can do that, basically. So that kind of becomes what it is, and Superman's encouraging him to tap in and sort of like deal with his past and things like that. So yeah, his name's Cameron, which I don't think I knew before this issue.
I forgot. Yeah. But so I've been, since we read the Lazarus Planet stuff, I was wondering when when we first met him in Gotham, he had that like little trash rat. It was a rat made out of trash. That represented Gotham. I was wondering when we were going to see something like that again, or if, like, because Metropolis is this big city, you're going to have this glass and concrete dragon rolling around, right? So I'm glad that, we got to see something like that come back here.
Yeah, although the size isn't that important in the sense that because it shrinks, when he gets control of his emotions, the size of the dragon shrinks down to probably about the same size of that rat, honestly. It's about that size. Right. But there's that great full page where they go chasing after the dragon, and it's on those steps where his mother abandoned him, and you get like Superman standing behind him, you get the dragon head coming in the other side, and you see the sort of the blue ghost-like images of like the flashback in the middle, and it's this just great full page spread. Like, I think I liked issue 1 quite a bit. I thought issue 2 was a little bit messier but still fun. I think this issue is where it felt like it kind of came together to me. I kind of get what it's doing a lot better this issue.
Yeah, and just the idea of, he just doesn't communicate with the city. He also projects how he feels into that communication. And I really like that, because it really adds layers to this kid. It's not just, because I was wondering how he's any different than the city guy that we met in Ram V Swamp Thing, right? How he can talk to cities. And here, because of the new gods of it all, he leaves his imprint as much as the city leaves its imprint on him. So I like that it's a two-way.
And there's that great scene. So after they see the memory on the steps, the mum gets in the taxi and starts driving away. And this is the flashback taxi. This isn't really there. But City Boy and the dragon like basically fly after the car. And what's interesting is that when they cross the bridge and they cross the Welcome to Metropolis sign, so they've effectively left the city, the car just disappears. Which is very interesting to me, how this works, in that do his powers only work when something's actually a city? Like, is a small town not also... Like, because there's still a place outside of Metropolis. Once you've left Metropolis, you're still at somewhere. It's not like a vacuum. So I wonder, like, if we're going to get like more of a clarification in time of like, is it about size? Is is it about population? Is it just a sense of like history where enough people have lived here over the years that all of that energy kind of builds up to create a life form almost kind of thing?
Yeah.
Like, what is the yeah?
Yeah, that could be, because I wonder, because I know it's teasing Bloodhaven next, right? And how that's going to be, but you got somewhere like Keystone and Central City, like, right? Like, where does one city begin and one end there because of the Twin Cities?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. So because there are cities that are right next to each other, like, is it the kind of thing where it's not so much that the area outside the city is like a dead zone, it's more just that right now he's like synced up with Metropolis, and he'd have to leave and sync up with the new area, whatever it is, so presumably the same thing would happen with Central City and Keystone, where let's say he's in Central, he's following a memory through Central, but it drives into Keystone. It would presumably still disappear because he'd have to go to Keystone, then form a connection, and then pick up the memory where it left off on that side. Maybe that's how it works. But either way, like, I'm curious if there's going to be more sort of added to this.
There's a lot of potential here for storytelling that way, Yeah,
it's interesting.
Of what it means, like we were saying, what's the difference between a city and a town? Right? Like, is it the people? Is it the memories? Is it the energy of the people that have moved through there?
Yeah.
Right?
Does it only work through cities because the sheer mass of people and energy?
Right.
Or does it work in a village with 25 people? Has that still got the same effect? Can you still talk to that?
Or like what would like Tokyo, which is like 9 cities in one megaplex, how would that play out? Right? Because there's so many more people. Like, how overwhelming would that be? So I like that Pock's playing with some interesting ideas and potential through this character.
Yeah. And then the next couple of pages are just silent as he flies back to the steps. Yep. And Superman says he's going to go help, everyone, pick up all this debris, because the dragon caused a bit of destruction, of course, as it was flying around. And Superman, he's trying to help him because City Boy talks about how all he sees, because Superman says everyone's trying their best, and City Boy's like, no, they're not. I see like all the memories of the city. I see people being bad. I see people everywhere, mugging people, being hit by cars. We see like some of these things happening in front of him in the blue ghost form. And it's like, okay, so it takes him away from the noise. And I like how Superman kind of relates to this in a weird way, because it's kind of like his super hearing, so he kind of understands, okay, you can't turn this off. Let's go up high. Let's go up to the top of a skyscraper where we're away from the streets and we can have a conversation. So... Yeah. I like that. I like using Superman to do that, and obviously Pac knows Superman well. He's written them before. Yep. So, ultimately, Superman goes off to help everyone, and City Boy leaves, and he does help a little bit, though. I forgot about this moment, actually, now I'm looking at it again. There's a car stuck in the road, because the road's kind of like split apart, and he seemingly uses his powers to like reform the road and get the car back sort of up again. So he does help some people, but from the shadows. He's not Superman. He's not going out and doing the PR.
The Superman,
So he threatens the guys that work for the gangster that were threatening everyone in the first issue, and basically says, "I'll come and eat you with my dragon if you don't stop harassing people." And the book ends with him going to Bloodhaven, which seemingly, much like I was saying earlier, seems to be maybe where the memory picks off. In fact, actually, you know what? That entire debate we just had, now that I'm looking at this last page, I don't think I caught this the first time I read it. It seems to be that he's now going in the direction that car went in. So maybe he's doing exactly what we said, where he's he's gone over the line, and he's just going to follow, pick up the memory where it left off in this second location, and seemingly... I assume the car went to Bloodhaven, and that's why he's going to Bloodhaven. He's tracking where his mother went.
Searching for mom,
Okay. So the answer was actually kind of there. We just didn't...
we just forgot.
Okay, that's interesting. That said, though, the car still disappears here in this panel in the last page, so maybe some of the stuff we were debating still may apply. I'm not sure.
Maybe he has to talk to Bloodhaven, and Bloodhaven's not as giving as Metropolis, right? Because of the history of Bloodhaven. It was this port for pirates, and It led to all the gambling and all this stuff. So maybe Bloodhaven doesn't want to share the information with him like Metropolis did. You know?
Oh, here's the question. Maybe, does he just know it's going to Bloodhaven because the car said that or something? I'm just checking. No, there's nothing on the car.
I don't remember.
No. Oh, well. Either way, though, it's all very interesting.
It is. It's, you know, it's very Jack Kirby in that way, too, where it's playing with these big ideas through superheroes, you know, but the whole idea of cities and, you know, and then we even get the New Gods in that era.
Yeah, just a touch. They're just kind of, you know, just a little smidge of them. That's all.
Yeah. So, but it's definitely, it feels like it's a DC type vibe too. It doesn't have like, because for me, stuff that feels like DC that plays with the history and stuff, this definitely is leaning onto that. So I enjoyed seeing Intergang show up. It's like, and now, so now what are we gonna do with Bloodhaven? You know, how deep is Pac going to pull from?
I think what's interesting here is that it is, you know, we were introduced to this character in Gotham in the Lazarus Planet stuff. We've now seen him in Metropolis. And then we're going to Bloodhaven next. I think it is actually quite interesting that we're utilizing the fact that DC has a lot of famous cities that we can use and sort of explore them this way through this character. I think the power set's very unique, but also just being able to use them this way is also kind of cool. It makes him stand out as a, you know, a more, you know, just individual character. So, no, I think the concept with this issue has really come together in a way that, I mean, I liked everything before, but it feels like it's really starting to click into place now, and I see what we can do with it. And he's got more of a goal and a direction now because he's trying to find where his mother went. So it's like, okay, he's going to use his way of seeing these memories through the city to track down where she went all those years ago. And it'll probably lead to where she is now if she's alive or if, you know, whatever the case may be. Right. So, very interesting. What are you giving City Boy issue 3?
I'm going to listen 8.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think I agree. Good stuff. Notably, all the non-Night Terrors books rated higher than all of the Night Terrors books. Just pointing that out. Before we get to the end of the show, though, I've got a Patreon book to do. I was going to do 2 Patreon books, but then I'd forgotten that my next American Vampire was like double sized. So I'll do Outsiders next week, but I'm doing American Vampire: The Long Road to Hell issue 1. And just a note on this, because the next issue of this is the 80-page anthology issue 1. With that one, because it is so big, because there's technically a size limit on the Patreon books, because it's an anthology though, it's actually quite easy to just split it up into 2. So I'll be doing about 40-ish pages next month and then 40-ish the month after, which is way more than I normally do for a regular issue.
Right.
So if
it's almost annual length though, right?
Yeah.
Like
it feels fair enough to me. That's the plan anyway. So anyway, American Vampire: The Long Road to Hell issue 1. I don't know if I read this before because I did not remember. Like nothing in it like clicked. Like I didn't remember a single thing as I was reading it. But so this is a one shot set in 1959. So we're getting to the end of that decade now in the timeline. And it's about this young couple of pickpocketers who are stealing from people at bars and clubs, and they are lured in and turned into vampires in the first few pages. You know, it's classic horror stuff. You know, they're out of the car, this woman comes up to try and proposition the boyfriend, and turns out she's a vampire, and they both get bit and turned. And it turns out the fat European vampire in charge of this area wanted them turned specifically for their thieving skills, you know, so he has a couple of thieves that are skilled in his coven, and you know he tries to make them kiss his ring, that they now belong to him, all that jazz. But as this is all going on, some rival vampires jump in and start fighting these vampires because they're arguing about a potential cure. They want to go to Vegas because there's a rumor of a cure. And it's worth mentioning that during all of this young couple haven't realized they've been turned into vampires yet. They're just kind of like confused and don't understand what's going on, and they make a run for it. And it's not until afterwards where they basically are getting like hungry and thirsty, and they're like kind of like, oh, it's like my insides are like dry and like I can feel my stomach. Like we need to feed on something. And sure enough, it's this really dickhead bouncer, like a gentleman's club, that gives them shit and is mean to them, the girlfriend like grabs and kills, and it cut to the next page, and this guy's just got his intestines spilled out in the desert, and they're both standing there going like, what have we done? Because they're feeling normal again now, right? The idea that the hunger like turned them into monsters. So all this has been really solid like character stuff. It's kind of a fun story, and I was into the fact that it was very self-contained so far. It was okay, we're in the world of American Vampire because it feels like those vampires, but we're just following this like standalone story of these two characters, and they don't want to kill people. They kind of want to only go after assholes and like people who are bad. And that ties into the second like plot that's going on, is that we're introduced to this kid who's in an orphanage, who is picked on by the other kids, and it turns out that he's actually quite good at basically deducing if people are bad. And he's in like solitary confinement because other kids lie about him and say that he started a fight. And he tells the guy who's in charge there that his daughter was killed because she was pushed onto the road by these two bullies. And the guy lets him out. So he ends up running away on his own. And that becomes important because he ends up running into our two main characters at a garage. A gas station for the Americans. So they run into each other, and there's this like abusive husband character yelling at his wife, and the kid's like, oh yeah, that guy definitely like beats her up and like abuses her because he's recognizing the scratches in the back of her neck, the bruises, the sunglasses over the black eye, things like that. And the boyfriend of the couple hears him say this, and he's like, wait, you can tell that? And he's like, yeah, I'm just good at picking out bad people. So basically, he wants to take this kid with them because he wants the kid to pick out who the bad people are, so they don't have to feel as guilty about who they're killing. Which is a really interesting concept. And sure enough, it implies at the end of this scene that they go and, kill this abusive husband. It happens off panel, you don't see it. But, yeah, so, they're traveling together now. You also see, like, in the newspaper that this janitor at the orphanage killed two kids and then himself, presumably the guy who was getting revenge for his daughter. So super dark stuff. So yeah, they're on their way to Vegas because they think the cure's there. This couple want to get married as well as find the cure. And then ultimately, the vampires they ran away from are in pursuit because when they were leaving, they pickpocketed his ring. And it turns out this ring is what gives this vampire the power to rule over the other vampires. It's like his Coven legacy ring or whatever it is. So it's actually got a purpose other than just being a really like tacky vanity item. So he's determined to get it back, and they catch up with them at a motel, and it feels like there's about to be a big showdown where the couple might be in over their heads and might not be able to do anything. And this has a heart-to-heart as well, where we find out this kid's never met his dad, and he's hoping to find his dad in Las Vegas. But the vampires show up, and that's where it crosses over into like continuity stuff, because all these vampires, there's like quick flashes of blood. The art here is really nice. There's just like blood splattered across the panels, and it's Travis, the greaser kid from the arc. It was like 2 arcs ago. It was the one in the 50s with all the racing.
Death Race.
Yeah, you had this greaser kid who was just out to kill vampires, and you get this full page reveal where he's just used a katana to decapitate the head vampire. And it's like a really cool big moment because you realize, oh, we're still in the 50s. It makes sense that he's still doing this. It's kind of his neck of the woods as well, around the Vegas area. So he's standing there, and we have this like awkward thing where he doesn't realize they're vampires, and he's like, oh, get out of here, folks. I'll take care of it. And then he gets back to the car, and he hears over the radio, yes, rumors are these two like murderers who are leaving people without their hearts going across the country are traveling with a young boy about 10 years old. And he's like, shit. So he's in pursuit after these two. And when they get to Vegas, they're getting so hungry that they're worried that they're going to eat the kid. So they they turn around, they've got their vamp faces on, and they tell him to get out the car for his own good because they don't want to kill him. And to the point where the girlfriend actually hits him out of the car just to protect him from them, more than anything. But this is where Travis catches up with them. There's a great full page spread where he's jumping with the katana, and like it's like a low angle looking up at him, and above him is the Welcome to Vegas sign. So it's really nice page, really good stuff. And he slashes the boyfriend, but very quickly, you know, the girlfriend's actually got Travis pinned down, and he's going to kill him, and she's going to kill him. But then they're like, no, wait, this isn't us. This guy's not bad. He's not done anything wrong. This guy just kills vampires. He's actually, if anything, he's doing the world a pretty big service. And they hand him his gun back, and basically accepting that they're going to die. But the kid kind of interjects and says there's still one thing you should do, you know, for happiness. And the whole issue they've been talking about wanting to get married. So they go to a quick wedding place. Travis goes in, holds the officiator at gunpoint and says, "You've got one more ceremony before you're done for the night." And they get married, and then after they get married and say their vows and kiss, Travis goes in and shoots them both with his wooden bullets or golden bullets, whatever he's using that he uses to kill vampires. You don't see it. You just see like this panel of the little, you know, fake church and the sound effects, the blam blam, as the kid waits outside, and Travis walks out, and the kid's crying. It's all very sad. It's pouring rain at this point, which, how often does it rain in Vegas?
I mean, more than you would think, but
it's not like a. This is not like a bullshit thing. Then it's
no. It does rain, especially in the summer. It just flooded in the north part of town, but we've gone so long without rain that when it does rain, it hits hard. So you know, but it's not like Seattle or Portland where it gets gloomy and stays gloomy. It kind of just drops and goes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pouring the rain, a lot of atmosphere. When the kid shows this photo of who he thinks his dad is, Travis is like, wait, this is this stuntman who died 18 years ago, and you're like, you know, 11 or whatever you are. And this literally cannot be your father. And you don't, and honestly at this point, like, I'm not really sure if the kid was like just pretending or hoping, or if this was literally someone lied to him and gave him this photo and said this was who your dad was. But Travis like says his goodbyes. It says he'll keep an eye on him, you know, tells him to stay out of trouble. And then a police officer comes up and says, "Hey, you lost, kid, it's late, you're alone." And the final page is him asking to go to the municipal theater, and the last page is a full page spread with him walking with this officer, but behind him is a giant poster for the fabulous illusionist Tianic, who's at the theater doing a magic show. So he's going to the magic show. And that's the end of the issue. Honestly, it's a really solid one shot. I think it benefits from like taking a break from all the characters who are constantly popping up in the story. Obviously Travis does show up, and that's quite exciting when it does, but Travis is a pretty standalone character even in the rest of the book, because he's not really he's not really getting involved that much with Skinner, and certainly not with the VMs and all that side of the plot. So having just this plot about this couple who are pickpocketers but like have enough empathy and don't want to kill people, and they're kind of struggling with this. And that's one of the things I didn't mention, is that when they get to Vegas and they're talking about looking for the cure, Travis admits that it's not real and that he actually started that rumor to lure vampires to Vegas so he could kill them, which is actually quite smart when you think about it. Make them all come to him. So that's a fun little detail. But I mean, the art is really good. There's several great full page spreads. Obviously the one with Travis having murdered all the vampires, the one where he's jumping in front of the Vegas sign really stand out. The vampires look good. The colors, you know, it's got that muted sort of cold, well, not cold, it's kind of warm, but warm in a very sort of neutral way kind of color palette. But then you've got the striking reds with the blood. Like, the blood really sticks out, because up until that point it's muted oranges, it's muted kind of blues for the nighttime and that kind of thing. All that stuff looks really good. Honestly, it's hard to fault. It's kind of like, it's interesting reading it when you're just sort of going through it, and like, because when this came out, of course, the book was on a break, and it was kind of this in-between thing where you didn't really know when you were getting more American Vampire, and maybe it would have felt like a weird, like, you were hoping for something more like important to the main story.
Yeah, feels like a holdover if you're waiting for it.
Yeah, but I think when you're reading it just like, you know, consistently in the trades or whatever, I think this is a really fun breath of fresh air, and just a fun little romantic horror story. You know, if you like something like Near Dark, or you like something, you know, anything like that with that kind of tone, it's good. It's a good time. But it does feel like it's in the American vampire world, because the evil vampires definitely feel like the same vampires that we see all the time, and obviously Travis showing up. So, yeah, and you definitely get the vibe that Scott Snyder loves the 50s and loves Vegas and loves Elvis. And I know he loves Elvis because he never shuts up about Elvis.
Yep. That's what I love about Scott Snyder.
So yeah, there you go. That's Long Road Home. It is probably
Long
a
Road to
solid.
Hell.
Oh yeah, what'd I say?
Yeah. You said Long Road Home.
Long Road Home. Sorry. Long Road to Hell, which in the comic is the song that they like together. They sing it a few times. So yeah, there you go. So next time I'll do the first half of Anthology issue 1, and we'll do that next month. But that is American Vampire for this time. So yeah, 8.5. I'll give it. Really solid.
Nice.
And I would recommend it.
Nice.
So that'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favourite stuff of the week, favourite panel / moment, favourite cover, favourite art, and of course rank our top 5 books of the week. So Matt, what is your favourite panel / moment?
Let's see. There's a couple things in Adventures of Superman of John Kent. There's of course the hug. There's when he takes Diana to Titan and gets the Lasso of Truth. That was real good. Talking to Damien, another great moment. But I'm going to be from Justice Society, and it's when the Justice Societies across time all join up, right? There's a real fun panel of all the different eras coming together to fight Pure Degaton, or Degaton as he's known. So, yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, there's a couple of things in John Kent that are really tempting. That JSA moment's fun. I think my pick, though, is actually going to be when City Boy's following the car and it disappears over the bridge. I thought that was a really sweet little sad moment that just it really tied the story together, and I kind of got what it was doing in a big way over the course of that entire sequence. But that ending of that bit, especially with the car disappearing, I thought was really good. So I'll go with that. Cover of the week. Usually I've got like a handful that I want to point out. I don't really this week. I just have my pick. And my pick is the main cover for Justice Society of America. That is a beautiful cover with all the heroes sort of flying up above. You're looking up at them. It's gorgeous. That's just it. I don't have anything else.
It's very Alex Ross-esque, right?
Yeah. There's some Alex Ross elements. It's also very Silver Age looking as well. With its soft, like vivid colors. It's just really nice.
Yeah.
What's your pick?
So I was going through. I just realized I didn't see if City Boy had any other covers, and
it does.
It does, but nothing that stands out for me. So mine's gonna be from Poison Ivy. Shocking, nobody. But there's a couple ones I want to highlight before.
Sure.
There's one that's the 1 in 25 Malavia variant, and it's if you take a look at it, it's kind of doing that big smile Deadeye thing better here than in the actual book, which I like, because it does get the vibe of the book across. But my pick is going to be the Jamie McKelvey. It's got Pam up against the wall, and it looks like all these hands from different people. It looks like Nightwings and Batgirls and Harleys spraying her with weed killer, and it's very horrific when you think about it. So. Yeah, so that's mine.
All right, cool. What's your art of the week?
Is there any answer but Justice Society?
I don't. Well, Dexter Soy's really good on the Ravager book, but I'm picking Mikel Janin as well. But I just want to point out that Dexter Soy art is very good.
Also, the City Boy art was decent. I don't think it's up there with Soy.
I mean, it's solid. It does what it needs to do. There's emotional moments in the book that are definitely work, partly because the art is good sequencing. So yeah, it's definitely good. But yeah, the Janin art's just too much to compete with this week, I guess. Although Soy's not too far behind. I did really like Dexter Soy's art and Ravager. All right, top 5 books, Matt, go.
1 Justice Society, 2 Adventures of Superman, 3 City Boy, 4 Ravager, 5 Poison Ivy.
Yeah, my number 1 is Justice Society. Number 2, Adventures of Superman. Number 3, City Boy. Number 4, Ravager, and I guess by just default it has to be Batman at number 5 because that's the last one. But let it be known that yeah, I'm thankful that we had 3 non-Night Terrors books and they were all good. They were all solid issues for various reasons. So that's good. I'll tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics, or Detective Comics, as the hip kids might say. We have Superman 2023 annual, so we do have a random issue of one of the regular books, but an annual instead, which is weird. Was this like maybe delayed from like a week 5 from before?
Maybe.
It wouldn't surprise me. That's what it feels like. It feels like it was meant to be in that 5th week at the end of, I don't know, June or July, whoever had the 5th week. And it was like, no, we don't have time, so here's, it's just out here now. But it is Williamson writing, so maybe it's...
Yeah, and it's got the gimmick of it's, some of the stuff that's been going on Superman, but through Lois's point of view, as the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet. So
that sounds interesting. We'll see how it fares. Obviously, his Superman run's been a little mixed so far.
Yep.
But we also got Night Terrors issue 3, so we'll see the next part of the main story. We have World's Finest Teen Titans issue 2, and we were very positive on the first issue. In fact, were you here for the first issue? Maybe it was me and Connor.
I was not.
Oh, well, me and Connor were both very positive on the first issue. We both said it was better than any of his World's Finest Batman Superman stuff, which we've liked, obviously. I liked that a lot, but I think Teen Titans was really good. And then we got Night Terrors Green Lantern issue 2. The first one was a complete waste of time, so I don't think I'm going to bother with that. Night Terrors Robin issue 2.
That was a waste of time. I'm not bothering with this one.
I don't remember what that was.
Also,
what was
the Crowbar. It's Tim and Jason teaming up in the Nightmare Realm, and them dealing with their inadequacies.
I do not remember this at all.
Did you read it?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I have no recollection in my mind of what that is.
Hard pass on this one for me.
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. We got Danger Street issue 8.
Yes.
Then we got Night Terrors Shazam issue 2. That's the first Night Terrors, other than issue 2, I suppose, that I am actually going to read. Night Terrors Flash wasn't that good either. So that's probably
so I won't catch up on that one then.
No. Night Terrors Zatanna. That was better. That was in the slightly better column, so I'll probably read that. So
I still have that in my to read, so I can catch up with that one easy.
Yeah. Well, Zatanna's awake, so it's different from the other ones.
Okay.
Which is, so
cool.
Yeah. So I will say, Night Terrors 3, and then Shazam and Zatanna are probably all the Night Terrors books that I'll be looking at, I think.
Fair.
Also, next week is Spirit World issue 4, which you'll probably look at, I imagine.
Yep, I caught up on that one.
Batman Incorporated 11, Wildcats 10, Multiversity Harley Screws Up the DCU issue 6, Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries issue 11, and Mad Magazine 33. So, yeah. So, no, there's a couple of meaty things that next week. We got a Superman annual, we got Danger Street, we got World's Finest Teen Titans, and 3 Night Terrors books that I think we're going to be looking at. So, similar amount next week, I guess. But much like this week, there's 1 or 2 Night Terrors tie-ins being dropped because I don't want to read the Green Lantern or Robin ones.
or Flash.
Or Flash. Yeah, oh god. Actually, you know what? I didn't read the Robin one. I remember it now. The creative team was so unappealing that I just didn't bother. That's what it was.
It was one of the books I read when we were on vacation when I was gone.
That's right.
And I read it and I was like, oh man. And I warned Connor before, like, don't.
Yeah, okay.
I know you love Tim. Don't read it.
Okay, to be fair to it, I didn't read the first issue because I didn't like the look of it. I'm remembering now.
Yeah,
but
it's a lot. If the crowbar on the cover tells you everything about the first issue.
It tells me everything to know that it's just the same as the other books where it's just doing the broad, overplayed beats of the characters, so it's fine.
Yeah.
That said, I did read Green Lantern and Flash last month, and they were both very, very skippable and meaningless.
Yeah. Green Lantern very much upset me. So
it was a complete waste of time. So, yeah, and you weren't here for that, so I'm glad you also thought it was a waste of time, because me and Connor tore it to pieces.
Yeah, not knowing that you guys had done that, I read it, and I was like, oh my god, Adams, what are we doing?
It's just a waste of time, isn't it?
Because I usually trust him. He's built some trust through, and just, oh man. I hate it because I don't blame caught him. Up. Like, I went from reading Green Lantern 2, which I was behind on, to the Night Terrors, and I could have gotten Whiplash.
Yeah, and for the record, I do not blame him. It's obviously this event he has to do these tie-ins for. Yeah. It does not make me in any way not less excited for his issue 3 when we get back to the main book. It's just what it is, and that's that. But anyway, that's the show. That has been episode 368. I think I said at the start. I hope that's right. But that is Comics From The Multiverse. Let us know what you thought, of course. You can get us on Twitter, or X, as we're calling it now, apparently.
I'm not calling it that. Not even if there's a fire.
That's at DC Comics Podcast. And of course, you can support the show and help keep it coming by going to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and supporting us for however much per month. At $5 and up, you get the show a little bit early, late in the Saturday whenever it's ready and out of the oven. Versus whatever. I mean, the best way to look at it is probably that it's there for you when you wake up on the Sunday as opposed to waiting the start time, depending on your time zone. If you're on the West Coast, I suppose it's not too late on a Saturday, but UK time, it's after midnight every Saturday.
Look, I'm getting up there in my age, and if it's something's dropping late at night, I'll just wait till the next day. That's just me.
But some people want our hot takes, Matt. They need them as quickly as they possibly can, and that's So, anywho, that's the show. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time for more Night Terrors, unfortunately. But Danger Street and Mark Waid, World's Finest Teen Titans, there's good stuff coming. So, we'll see you for that. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.